I had just finished my PhD. I was visiting my grandfather one day on my dad's side. He told me that he was working with the team that cleared the land to build the university here. And I don't think he had any idea how much that meant to me at the time. He could never even have been accepted as a student because of all of the segregation. And he said at the time that if anybody had ever told him that his granddaughter would end up graduating from this college with honors, he would have bet his salary for 25 years that it would never have happened.
I came to Wake Forest 51 years ago. It was in a small college town, and students walked into the town to go to the post office or to go to the drugstore or to get a meal. Kind of campus where you knew almost everyone. Most of the students in those years came from North Carolina. Most of them came from low and middle income families. I would say students who went to Wake Forest moved beyond their origins into very promising careers. I'd say people who came to college that were highly motivated. It had a law school. Many became ministers. Many became teachers, like myself, either in the public schools or in colleges and universities. Even though we were not very well off financially, we still were among the favored few, and either having the encouragement or the support to go to college. One of my main themes and one of my main commitments is to the notion that Wake Forest should not forget those origins and should not overlook its heritage. And this means that I think we should make every effort that we can to put a Wake Forest education within the reach of any young person, man or woman now, who wants to come here and who has the grades and the motivation. Wake Forest, like the rest of the South, was very much ravaged by the Civil War. And it was at that time almost impossible for anybody to go to college because even the minimum amount of money college required was not available to most people. And in 1875, just 10 years after the war, a man named James Denmark, who had been to Wake Forest earlier, thought that it would be a good idea if there could be a loan fund established from which potential students could borrow money to go to college. And so he called together in one meeting all the faculty members and all of the students and sometimes people. And each member of the faculty gave $10, and most of the students gave $1 apiece. From this one little gathering of people that didn't have much, from that beginning developed what was really the first student loan fund in the United States.
I was born in the town of Wake Forest. My grandfather had moved to the town of Wake Forest about the turn of the century. My father went to Wake Forest College and to law school. I was not at all happy to move to Winston-Salem. Wake Forest, in my mind, as a 20-year-old, belonged in Wake County. I was unconvinced that they knew how to cook barbecue in the western part of the state, and I still am. But my attitudes changed. College was fun. Dean Carroll Weathers worked us pretty hard in law school. I think is probably the primary factor in my whatever success I've earned as a practicing lawyer. At my law firm, where we have a number of Wake graduates, when we're confronted with an ethical problem, conflict of interest among clients or something that we perceive to be an ethical problem as to how we proceed about a matter, those of us who graduated from Wake Forest can simply say to each other, what would Dean Weathers say?
Well, I grew up in Winston-Salem, went to Haynes High School. Family still lives in Winston-Salem. So I came to Wake Forest in 1955, majored in accounting. Had a great time at Wake Forest, had a great influence on my life, obviously. Professor Hilton was accounting professor at Wake Forest when I was there, and he was a very tough-minded person.
Well, unquestionably, many of them thought I was too demanding.
What he instilled in all of us was a need for discipline, a need for a disciplined learning process, and that good things come to people who work, and the harder you work, the luckier you get.
But those who got through it, years later, at least a few of them came back and said they were glad they went through the fire.
It's very, very important for them to play a fairly active role in pursuit of their education. And so you'll find that I'm pretty direct with students. I like to get people under the microscope, so to speak, and cut beneath all the initial kinds of surface responses and find out what somebody really knows. They find that an uncomfortable experience at the time, I think, but I think most of them learn a lot more as a result of it.
I think the opportunities would not have been as easily available other places. A great deal of what has happened to me here has been solely due to Wake Forest and the fact that there are so many people here who take a genuine interest in the student and challenging the student. I think my interest in history and medicine has developed probably to an extent it might not have developed elsewhere. So I definitely think that I owe a great deal of what I've achieved to this place and to the people here. There's a genuine commitment to the student.
I suppose it was a little late in my education when I began to realize what was happening and what had happened to me. I realized that I had learned quite a lot in my years at Wake Forest, and that those years were going to be extremely valuable to me as my life wore on. And of course, that's one of the reasons I feel a certain obligation and a certain loyalty to Wake Forest that a lot of people might not feel. When I go back, I still feel a certain feeling of family, if you wish, or of togetherness at Wake. And if you think in 40 years that have gone by, the changes have not been that monumental, only in the sense that it's expanding educationally. That's something we never stop working for, is the scholastic recognition that the school receives. And certainly all of us are extremely proud of what happens to the people who leave Wake Forest and go into their future lives, whether they are doctors, lawyers, or business people. And there's not, I don't think, a school in the country that wouldn't like to become acknowledged as one of the top universities in the world, and not in numbers necessarily, but in quality. And I think that's what Wake is doing, and I think that's what we're all striving to prove at Wake Forest.
John Williams is the only chair of the psychology department that we've had. As an undergraduate, I was terrified of him. I can remember being called in to talk to him about something. I can remember sitting in the chair feeling like I was about 2 inches tall. But when I began working with him, I found that he was a marvelous mentor. He gave me more and more responsibility as he saw that I could handle it. He was constantly involving me in what was going on and asking my opinion and getting me involved, and I think that's one of the things I've incorporated into my own teaching. I try not to tell students what I think they ought to do, but let them help me solve the problem and be a member of a team. And I think just that personal contact is incredibly important to these kids. They need to feel like they're part of something that's important enough that faculty who they have up on a pedestal will pay attention to. I keep in my desk drawer the notes, the Christmas cards, the Valentines, the funny jokes, the things like that that I get from students. And I pulled the drawer out and sort of leafed through some of these, and I remembered over the course of the 18 years that I've been teaching that there are a lot of these students who were not majors that I just had in one course, or I hadn't felt like I'd had that much impact on, but here they'd gone to the effort to write me a note to say something special about something they thought I had done for them. But it's the people here that care and that will spend the time and effort to do that for each other.
It goes beyond that. Wake Forest people have made this a nationally recognized university, and I'm proud of that. When you come to Wake Forest, you make a commitment, a promise, not just to yourself, but a promise to this university to carry out the values you learn here, to carry them out into the world. And we have a tradition here of keeping our promises. That's our heritage, but it's also our future. What will this great university be 10 years from now? That's up to us, Wake Forest people.